I don't know how old you guys are, girls that listen to this, but I'm 37. I was born technically into communism, although now, short of hearing my name, you probably couldn't tell the difference between me and a local Brooklyn knucklehead or Queens. But when I was born, I was in St. Petersburg. Then it was still called Leningrad. The reason I tell you this is because if you told my mother when I was growing up that I had ADHD or your son has ADHD, she would ask what that was and they would explain it, and my mom would just not believe it. She just wouldn't buy it. In fact, most teachers and parents back then wouldn't in the 80s because they would just say that my kid has a problem with paying attention. And if you think about it, it's kind of true. I mean, ADHD is a disorder. Well, actually, I don't think it's a disorder personally, but unless you have a severe chemical imbalance, which I've also seen, like I've seen guys do a line of coke and then go to sleep. The fuck, because you got a chemical imbalance. But mostly, people just need to learn how to pay attention. Like I've said countless times, and I'm not the only one that says this, I'm sure you've heard the words pay attention, but no one's ever actually taught you how to pay attention. The reason I bring this all up is because I had the unfortunate experience of spending about 14 days in jail. Let's not get into why, but I don't think it was deserved. Be that as it may, I did. And let me tell you something. Everybody in jail kind of behaves the same way, more or less. Like, you were not going to see one guy with severe ADHD, another guy with severe depression, and 3 and 4. They all kind of have like minor depression because they're in fucking jail, But the thing is ADHD goes right out the window, because you could have ADHD, and if you don't make your bed because you forgot, you don't get to talk to the people like your family at 12 o'clock or watch TV because you have to stay in your cell. So you learn really quickly how to do what you're supposed to do, or else you don't get to do what you want to do. And there's not many of things that you want to do in jail. Real quick, like the next day, you'll make your bed. And then the day after, and there's not going to be a lapse in that task because you're going to remember to make your fucking bed. See, I think ADHD flourishes and it expands because we have the time to do it. So like if I have 3 or 4 days off and I'm at my house, at the end of the 3 or 4 days, if I don't go anywhere, it's a fucking mess. And I'm not talking about dirt. Like I dust, I vacuum, but there's just shit everywhere. There's paint here, there's fucking markers there. There's like drill and wood, because can you please? So, because I start projects and I don't finish them right away, predominantly because how my brain works. And that's why I guess I'm successful in the restaurant industry, because I could do 10 things at once and everybody will think it's normal, because it is. Most people crack under that kind of pressure. Me, I need it to like look normal. So with that in mind, ADHD, quote unquote, can be fixed or at least subdued if you have the discipline to do it. That's the problem though. Like if I'm home, I tell myself, yo, don't start a million things. Fucking start one thing and finish it. But I'm on leisure time. I'm not doing anything that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing things I want to do. So if I start painting with, if I choose my palette of like 3 greens and 2 blues, and I'm done with those colors, I don't go and start another palette because I'm fucking done. But I leave the paint there because I say to myself, I'm going to come back to it. And then if I don't, because I started 19 other things, I don't. And that's how the mess actually happens. And then I just take like 2 hours and I clean everything up and you start all over again. In jail, it's not like that because it's obvious, you don't have, first of all, you don't have too many belongings. And I'm not talking about like prison, because in prison you can forget to make your bed because you got a meeting with the guy at 9 for the drugs that was up his butt, yada, yada, yada. I'm just talking about typical, normal, everyday person jail. So very similar to the military, actually. Military is very much like jail, except for military is a little more fast-paced and physically demanding. And the restaurant industry, when you work, is very much like the military, except you don't kill people. Same rules, same fast-paced environment, same screaming. You have to follow orders without asking why, even though you might know a different way to do it. I'm not comparing by any means the restaurant industry to the military, because I obviously have a very, very high affinity for the military. I just never had enough balls to join. So if you find a way to get yourself disciplined enough to where you could do set goals, even though they're small, and accomplish them, you'll be fine. And if you don't, and you're really bothered by your ADHD and you can't focus, make the goals really small and then just eliminate all the things in your life that give you this disorder. Then obviously there's some cases that are more severe than others, like somebody keeps zoning out during a conversation. So you're talking to me and I'm just like, and then you're like, hey, oh, wait, what'd you say? Happens a lot. There's a really, really cool and interesting way to try to fight that, and that's holding an ice cube in your hand. It's weird, I know, but it works. So next time, if you think you're going to be in a lecture or a talk or anything really that you zone out in, grab an ice cube or something super cold like that and hold it in your hand. Because the fact that you're always focusing on the fact that your hand's cold, you're not going to take your mind off of that. And that'll teach you, so to speak, how to concentrate on the conversation. Because you'll be like, fuck, my hand's cold. Right, pay attention. So it's almost like having a dog collar. And by the way, I'm not advertising people to go to jail. Don't do that. Unless you really want to, which then don't, And don't zap yourself with electricity like a dog collar, because you won't know when to. You don't realize that you're doing it until it's too late. But the ice cube helps because it's constantly cold. It's also not supposed to be a long, prolonged thing. Just a couple of minutes, hold the ice cube, have the conversation, don't zone out, goal completed. And as far as leisure time goes and goals, set a goal for yourself to not do anything until you're done. And then set a timer. Say, for instance, you want to paint a painting, and normally it would take you 3 hours. Don't do the full 3 hours. Set 2 alarms, one for 45 minutes and one for an hour, for example. Paint for 45 minutes, and then the rest of it, when that first alarm rings, start cleaning. And in the 15 minutes you clean. Then the second alarm rings, you can go on to your stuff. Another thing is if you're like not motivated and you're bored and you don't want to work anymore, you don't want to do what you're doing, but you have to, take a break. Put a chair in the middle of the room, no electronics, no nothing, and just sit in the chair. Just sit there, as long as it takes. Because what'll happen is you'll get bored. And when you get bored, you start to want to do something else, which is fine, obviously. But what you'll want to do is you'll actually want to get back to work. You will be so bored of not doing work or anything that you'll want to do what you were doing. So hopefully that helps. It did for me.